Hello, 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 hello. Hey guys, what's up, Anna? Nice of you to join. Dia. What's up, Bigfoot? Nikki, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, Hope. Hey, Dee Dee. Nice of you guys to join. Hey, Katie, glad you can join. How you guys doing today? Did anyone watch the Olympics? The opening ceremony? I didn't watch it. I heard that it was a little bit sad because like there's no crowd or anything. I don't know how you do it without a crowd. Is anyone even excited for the Olympics? I like how like we don't care about most of the sports that are in the Olympics until the Olympics happen, right? So every 4 years, like, oh my god, it's swimming. Oh my god, I want to watch people swim. Oh my god, it's gymnastics. I never watched gymnastics before, but now all of a sudden, I'm really excited. 300. Oh yeah. 300K subs. Thanks, Nikki. Yeah, I think we reached that like a couple days ago. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. I didn't think I would reach 300 like when I started it like 3 years ago. You're a year-long boxing fan? Is there boxing in the Olympics? I don't think so, right? There's a lot of martial arts though. There's taekwondo and judo. Maybe I'll watch some of those. Yeah. Yeah, I don't really care. But maybe I'll watch the gymnastics. I wonder how Vietnam is doing. Let's see if Vietnam has had any gold medals yet. Olympics. Vietnam at the 2020 Olympics. I don't think we won anything, do we? No. Oh no. Check it out. Look at this. Vietnam 0 gold, 0 silver, 0 bronze. Okay, well, good job, Vietnam. Nice job there. To be fair, we just started, so, you know, maybe that number will increase. Who would you cheer for? I would cheer for the United States, of course. Yeah. For my country, right? But I would cheer for Vietnam too. Yeah, unfortunately, we're not doing that well. IDK, you've never watched the Olympics? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you don't have to watch it. Sometimes it's fun. Like gymnastics is pretty fun to watch, actually. Wait, what? Who's Candace? What are you talking about? All right, I have some candy today. Oh, wait, pick it up. I have this. Yuzu gummy candy. Alright, let's see what this is. You guys know what yuzu is, right? It's just a citrus fruit. It's like lemons. Ooh, wait. Okay. Basically gummies. Oh, that's a strong yuzu flavor. Good stuff. Curling? Yes, the Winter Olympics does have curling. I don't know how that works. Apparently, brushing the ice makes the thing go, the whatever you call it, the puck, go faster. That's weird. That's one of the weirdest sports. Not bad. It's pretty good actually. Okay. What am I drinking? I'm just drinking water. Yeah, I don't have anything. I usually just drink water. I think it's the best thing to drink. Your brother loves curling. Why? What is so good about it? Is it exciting? I can't imagine. I guess it's exciting. I mean, people watch it, right? Just stopping to say hi? Hi, Ghost. Thanks for stopping by. I guess if you like suspense, you like curling. I'm sure like they train for it and there are techniques and stuff, but I don't know. I'm just not into it. Are you guys ready? So today's chapter is I think it's going to be pretty good. All right. So what happened last week? All right. So last week in the story, remember we're at the ceremony to choose the leader of the 5 sword schools, right? And the headmaster, well, the chief of the 5 sword school, Chief Zuo Langchan, he wants to merge the schools, right? And he wants to be the leader of the merged school. So so he declares this in the meeting. He said, "I want to merge our 5 schools so we can become like a really powerful school." And then the leader of the Taishan school, Priest Tianmen, he objects, right? He doesn't want to merge the school. But the chief Zuo had a plan for this already. He's a planner, okay? So he already has a plan for this. He's already talked to a faction in the Taishan school that wants to merge, right? And they rebel at the meeting. They rebel against the priest Tianmen, and they kill him, right? They kill him, and then the new headmaster agrees to the merger. So Taishan school is over. And then Chief Zhou, he goes to ask Ling Hucheng, our hero, and Ling Hucheng has to decide for the school of Hangshan. And Ling Hu says he will side with his master, his old master at the Huashan school, right? Which is, I don't know, he's really loyal to his master. So he says, I'm not gonna make the choice. I'm gonna side with my master in Huashan. Meanwhile, the Peach Valley 6 fairies are making a ruckus. They're calling Chief Zuo out on his lies and stuff. So Chief Zuo is very annoyed at them, but they're being surprisingly smart and coherent, right? Which is like not their usual selves. So Chief Zuo asked Ling Hucheng's master. He asked Yue Buchun, the headmaster of the Huashan school, if he wants to merge. And Yue Buchun, he walks up. He talks for a while. He's very long-winded, but at the end, he agrees to the merger, which surprised Ling Hucheng, right? Ling Hucheng thought the master would object and they would be against this merger together. But nope. The master agrees, and then he can't go back on his word because he already said that he would agree with his master. So he can't really say anything. The 6 fairies cause a ruckus again. And that's basically where we ended. Yeah, that's it. That's the recap. Last chapter was pretty funny. Yeah. What do the Vietnamese drink? No, we don't drink sake. We just drink beer. We just drink beer. Lots and lots of beer. They freaking in Vietnam, they all like drink. Everyone drinks tea, right? Tea is like a normal thing. I think they drink tea more than water. But they drink a lot of beer and liquor. Any kind of liquor. I don't know what kind of liquor they drink. Yeah, I remember my dad told us that when he was young, him and his brothers, he has two brothers. Him and his brothers, they would sit down on a table and they have this big pail. It's like an actual pail of liquor, right? I don't know if it's beer or actual like alcohol, like liquor, but they would have this pail and they'll put it in the middle of the table, and they'll take their freaking cups or whatever, and they'll just drink the entire pail, just the three of them. Yeah, they drink a lot. They probably have nothing to do back in Vietnam, so that's all you can do. Drink and gamble. Any specific beer? I don't know. Ling Hu's reaction was a bit anticlimactic. Yeah, I don't know. Well, he already said that he would agree with his master, so I guess he can't go back on his word, right? Dun, dun. All right, you guys ready? Let's do this. Yeah, they're all alcoholics in Vietnam. All right. Chapter 33, Sword Fight, Part 1. Well, it said sword fight, so it must be exciting. An old priest from the Taishan school said loudly, "This position of headmaster of the Five Mountains Sword School must be held by a senior with virtue, ability, and prestige. How can it be otherwise?" So he's arguing with the Peach Valley Six Fairies. This person's voice was loud, and even those people who were in the middle of the bustling noise managed to hear it clearly. Peachtree Branch Fairy said, "Ability, integrity, and prestige? In all of Wulin, the only person who fulfills all these requirements is Shaolin's great master Feng Zheng." Every time the Peach Valley Six Fairies talked, everyone had laughed, because no one could actually understand what they were talking about. But when they mentioned Great Master Feng Zheng's name, the whole mountaintop became quiet. Great Master Feng Zheng's martial art was powerful, and he was also a merciful and righteous person. He had always upheld justice in Wulin, and had also been revered by everyone for the last dozen years. Shaolin School's reputation was flourishing, and it was also the #1 school in Wulin. So when the descriptions of ability, integrity, and prestige were used to describe the great master Feng Zheng, no one objected. Root Fairy shouted, "Is Shaolin Temple's Abbot Feng Zheng a person of ability, integrity, and prestige?" The thousands of people there answered together, "He is." "Very good. Since everyone agreed, Great Master Feng Zheng is favored by everyone then. Compared to the 6 of us, it seems Great Master Feng Zheng is favored slightly more. In that case, we'll have to invite Great Master Feng Zheng to become the Five Mountain School's headmaster then." Quite a few people from the Songshan School and Taishan immediately called out, "Nonsense! Great Master Fang Zhang is the headmaster of Shaolin School. What does he have to do with our Five Mountains School? Branch Fairy replied, just now this old priest said that he wanted to invite a senior of integrity, ability, and prestige to become the headmaster, so I found one for him. Could it be Great Master Fang Zhang isn't a person of ability and integrity? Could it be he has no prestige? Alas, could it be that he's not a senior in Wulin? Are you saying the Great Master isn't a senior of integrity, ability, and prestige, and that he's just a lowly nobody? What absurdity! Who had the nerve to say that? No, who didn't want him to become the headmaster? Peach Valley's 6 fairies will have it out with him. Trunk Fairy said, Great Master Fang Zhang has been the headmaster of Shaolin School for dozens of years already. Why can't he be the headmaster of the Five Mountains School? Could it be the Five Mountains School is above Shaolin as of today? Which crazy person has the nerve to say Great Master Fang Zhang isn't fit to be the headmaster? Taishan Schools' Yu Jizi scowled. So this is Yu Jizi is the new headmaster of the Taishan School, right? He just killed the old one. Great Master Fang Zhang is a person of integrity and ability, and everyone respects him deeply. But today, we're electing the headmaster of the Five Mountains School. Great Master Fang Zhang is a respected guest. How can we just drag him into our matter? Trunk Fairy said, according to what you said, Great Master Fang Zhang cannot be the headmaster of the Five Mountain School because Shaolin and Five Mountain Schools are unrelated? Correct, Yu Jizi answered. How come Shaolin School and the Five Mountain Schools are unrelated? I say they're greatly related. Which 5 schools form the Five Mountains School? Trunk Fairy inquired. Sir, you already know, but you're still asking about it again. Five Mountain School consists of Songshan, Taishan, Huashan, Hangshan, and Hangshan schools, Yu Jizi replied. Flower Fairy and Fruit Fairy replied together, Wrong! Just then, Zhuo Longchan said that after the Five Mountain Sword Schools merged, Songshan School and Taishan School's names will no longer exist in Wulin. How come you mentioned the name of the 5 schools again? Leaf Fairy said, I see he's still very much attached to his school and doesn't want to forget. Once an opportunity arises, he'll hatch a plan and destroy the Five Mountain School. Then he'll start rebuilding his Taishan School and establish his prestige again. Many people in the crowd started laughing as they thought, these Peach Valley 6 fairies are crazily turning everything upside down, but every time someone says something slightly wrong, they immediately latch onto it, and the original speakers can't do anything. What all these people didn't know was that the Peach Valley 6 fairies had been debating endlessly since they managed to talk at around the age of 2 or 3, and were particularly good at latching onto the mistakes in each other's speech. In the last dozens of years, they had become accustomed to doing this. Thus, it was no wonder that no one could be their match when the Peach Valley 6 fairies combined their 6 brains and mouths. Yu Jizi's face was green for a time and red for a time. He said, This is really one big bad luck for the Five Mountain School with the 6 of you weirdos in it. Flower Fairy said, You said the Five Mountain School is bad luck. That's really looking down at the Five Mountain School. It means that you don't want to stay inside the Five Mountain School. Fruit Fairy said, This is only the first day that our Five Mountain School is open, and yet you're already cursing it, saying that it's bad luck. In the future, the Five Mountain School will be glorious and will stand as equals with Shaolin and Wudang. It will become a big school that everyone in Jianghu looks up to. Priest Yu Ji, how come you don't have a good heart and you said something so ominous? Leaf Fairy said, I see Priest Yu Ji's body is at 5 mountains, but his heart is at Taishan. He's hoping the merger would fail and that it would break up by the end of the first day. With this kind of intention, how can the Five Mountain School accept him into the school? For the pugilists of Jianghu, they had always lived on the points of bloodied swords, so they believed very much things that were taboo. When everyone heard what the Peach Valley 6 fairies said, they all felt that the 6 fairies' words were logical. How could Yu Jizi say that the Five Mountain School was bad luck on this auspicious day. Even Zuo Longchan was dissatisfied at what Yu Jizi said. Yu Jizi knew that he had said the wrong thing, and he immediately stayed silent, while inwardly feeling very angry. At 400k subs, I start a cooking channel for my parents. Maybe. If they're willing. That would be very funny. I'd pay them just to see what happens. It would be very funny. It'd be very funny listening to them try to speak English. I almost want to do it. Trunk Fairy said, I said Shaolin School and Songshan School are related, but Priest Yuju said they're unrelated. So are they related or not? Are you right or am I right? Priest Yuju indignantly said, since you love to say that they're related, we'll just say that they're related. Trunk Fairy said, ha! Matters of the world are based on logic. Which mountain is Shaolin Temple on? Which mountain is Songshan on? Flower Fairy answered, Shaolin School is on Mount Shaoshi. Songshan School is on Mount Taishi. Shaoshi and Taishi both belong to Mount Songshan. Isn't that right? Why did you say Shaolin School and Songshan School are unrelated? These words they said really made sense, and everyone in the crowd were nodding their heads. Branch Fairy said, just then, Mr. Yue said, after schools have merged together, the number of fighting in Jianghu would decrease. It's for this reason that he approved of the merger. He also said the merging of schools will be selected based on the similarity of their skills, the closeness of their locations, and their willingness to merge. Speaking of nearness, Shaolin and Songshan are near each other. They are even together on one mountain. If Shaolin School and Songshan School don't merge, then what Mr. Yue said was a little bit like breaking some sort of air. The crowd knew that he managed to hold back from saying the word wind, but they giggled over it. They all felt that it was rather unthinkable for Shaolin and Songshan to merge, but what Peachtree Branch Fairy said was quite reasonable, and it followed what Yue Buchun had said earlier. Ling Huchong was secretly impressed. The Peach Valley 6 fairies are experts in latching on to someone's words, but I'd never expected them to say these kinds of words. I wonder who's helping them. Karaoke stream at 400k subs? I don't know if anyone will watch that. I don't want everyone to just like unsubscribe. I'll reach 400k and then I'll do that stream, the karaoke stream. And then it goes back to like 350. Trunk Fairy said, Great Master Fang Zhang is in favor with the public, and originally we all wanted to invite him to become our 5 mountain schools' headmaster, but someone raised the issue that Great Master Fang Zhang doesn't belong to the 5 mountain school. So Shaolin and 5 mountain school must merge and become the Shaolin 5 mountain school. That way, Great Master Fang Zhang can become the new school's headmaster. Root Fairy said, That's right. At the present time, there's no one who can compare to Great Master Fang Zhang or more fit to become the headmaster. Fruit Fairy said, We, Peach Valley 6 fairies, accept Great Master Fang Zhang. Could it be that there are people who don't accept? Flower Fairy said, If there's anyone who doesn't want to accept, then there's no harm to come out and have a contest with us. Once you beat the Peach Valley 6 fairies, you might as well have a contest with Great Master Fang Zhang. Once you beat Great Master Fang Zhang, you might as well have a contest with all the great masters from the Damo Hall, Luohan Hall, Commandment Courtyard, and the Scripture Chamber. Once you beat all the great masters from the Damo Hall, blah, 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 blah. Then you can have a contest with Priest Chongshu of Wudang. Fruit Fairy interrupted. Fifth brother, why do they have to have a contest with Wudang's Priest Chongshu? Flower Fairy answered, The 2 headmasters from the Wudang School and Shaolin School are best friends who share weal and woe together. If someone beat Great Master Fang Zhang, how could Priest Chongshu not come out? Leaf Fairy said, That's right, you're not wrong at all. Once they beat Priest Chongshu, then they'll fight the Peach Valley 6 fairies. Root Fairy said, Yeah, they already fought against us. Why do they have to fight us again? Leaf Fairy replied, Even if we lost the first time, how could the Peach Valley 6 fairies happily admit defeat? We'll naturally dispute this with those smelly bastards again. The crowd was laughing madly, listening to the 6 brothers talking back and forth. There were some who were disagreeing with them, and there were some who were calling out and following them. Yujizu was extremely mad and couldn't hold it back anymore. He flew forward with his sword in his hand and called out, "Peach Valley 6 weirdos! Yujizu doesn't accept and wants to fight with you." Root Fairy said, "We're all from the 5 Mountains School. How can we be killing each other?" "You talk too much. The gods detest it, and the ghosts loathe it. Once we get rid of the 6 of you from the 5 Mountains School, our eyes will be clearer, and our ears will hear better," Yujizu replied. Trunk Fairy said, "All right, you have a sword in hand and murder in your heart. Are you thinking of using your sword to chop our 6 heads?" Yujizu snorted and ignored him, but his eyes were full of murderous intention. Branch Fairy said, "Today is a merger of our 5 schools. If on the first day your Taishan school kills 6 masters from the Hangshan school, how can the 5 schools cooperate after today? How can we still work together?" Yujizu thought that these words sounded logical. If he killed these 6 people today, then there would be endless fighting, as there would certainly be someone from the Hangshan school who would seek revenge for them. He immediately restrained his anger and said, "Since you already know that we should work together, then stop hindering this big matter with your nonsense and stop talking." He took his longsword a foot out of the scabbard and slammed it back in. Whoa, did they just stop a fight with just their words? That's pretty cool. Leaf Fairy said, "How about words that are beneficial to the 5 Mountain Schools' future and people in the orthodox path?" Yujizu coldly laughed. "None of you are saying anything like that." Flower Fairy said, "Doesn't matter of who's going to become the headmaster of the 5 Mountain School concern our school's future and the destiny." Wait. Doesn't the matter of who's going to become the headmaster of the 5 Mountain School concern our school's future and the destiny of Wulin's orthodox path? The 6 of us are doing our best to choose a senior master who's in favor with the public to become our headmaster here. But you're so selfish and only want that person who gave you 3,000 gold tails and 4 pretty ladies to become the headmaster. Oh, he exposed the plan. Yujizu was given 3,000 gold tails and 4 pretty ladies, apparently. Flower Fairy said, wait. Yujizu was livid as he shouted, "Nonsense! Who said someone gave me 3,000 gold tails and 4 pretty ladies?" Flower Fairy said, I said the number wrongly. It's not 3,000 gold tails. It's definitely 4,000 tails. It's not 4 pretty ladies or 3 pretty ladies, but it's 5 ladies. You don't know who gave these to you? It's that person who you wanted to elect as the headmaster. That's the person who gave these gifts to you. Yujizu immediately drew his longsword. "You're talking nonsense again. I want your blood spattered right here." Flower Fairy cackled madly, walked towards Yujizu and said, "You used such a despicable method to harm Priest Tianmen, who was your Taishan school's headmaster. Are you still thinking of harming other people? Not only was Priest Tianmen killed by you right here, other people from your own school were harmed by you. Harming people really must be your specialty. Why don't you see and try it on my body?" As he said this, he strode forward step by step. Yujizu held his longsword in front of him and severely shouted, "Stop! Walk one more step, and I won't be polite anymore." Okay, so yeah, he's really mad that his plan got exposed. Flower Fairy said, "Are you being polite right now? This Songshan mountaintop isn't yours. I'm allowed to walk anywhere I want. Go to the east, walk to the west. What's that got to do with you?" As he said this, he again walked forward a few more steps and was now only a few feet away from Yujizu. Looking at Peach Tree Flower Fairy's ugly, long horse face with crooked yellow teeth, feeling of extreme loathing a feeling of extreme loathing grew within Yu Jizu. With a stab, he thrust out his longsword towards Flower Fairy's chest. Flower Fairy hurriedly dodged the stab and scolded, "Smelly traitor! You're really attacking!" Yujizu had already grasped the essence of Taishan School's swordsmanship. As his first attack came out, his second attack followed, and the sword moves were extremely fast. Flower Fairy had already dodged 4 attacks in the time he took to scold Yujizu. But Yujizu's sword moves were getting faster and faster, while Flower Fairy's hands and legs were very busy dodging it in a disorderly fashion. "Whoa! Whoa!" Flower Fairy continuously called out. He wanted to take the short iron stick hanging from his waist, but he was too slow to do so. As the sword flashed around Peachtree Flower Fairy's left shoulder was pierced. Immediately, within seconds of this, Yujizu's longsword fell from his hand, and his whole body flew up into the air. His 4 limbs were each grabbed by root, trunk, branch, and leaf fairies. This was like a rabbit caught by a falcon, and happened very quickly. They're using their special move. Suddenly, there was a flash of yellow, and a sword chopped down towards Branch Fairy's head. Fruit Fairy, already beside his brothers to protect them, extended his short iron stick to block the sword. The yellow-clad person sent his second sword thrust towards Root Fairy's chest. Flower Fairy drew out his short iron stick to block this attack and recognized the yellow-clad person as Songshan School's headmaster, Zuo Langchan. Zuo Langchan knew that even though the Peach Valley 6 fairies talked in a jumble, they actually had astonishing skills. On that year, when he sent a master of Huashan School's sword branch, Cheng Buyo, to Mount Huashan, Cheng Buyo was torn into 4 pieces. When he saw Yujizu captured by these 6 brothers, he knew he must rescue Yujizu promptly to prevent him from being torn apart. Actually, since he was the host, it was inappropriate for him to just fight as he wanted. But the situation was desperate, so he hastily pulled his sword out to help. Zuo Langchan attacked both Branch Fairy and Root Fairy to force them to release their hands to dodge the attacks, but he never expected the Peach Valley 6 fairies to work together seamlessly. While the 4 of them were holding the enemy's hands and legs, the remaining 2 were on the outside protecting. These 2 sword moves from Zuo Langchan were swift and fierce, but they were successfully blocked by Fruit Fairy and Flower Fairy. Actually, Yujizu's life was hanging by a thread. Zuo Langchan had used his inner energy when he was trading blows with Fruit Fairy and Flower Fairy because he knew he must force these 2 people back within 6 moves. If he didn't manage to do this in 6 moves, then it might be too late to save Yujizu from being torn apart. Zuo Langchan immediately circled his longsword and the sword flashed. A moment later, Yujizu uttered a shout and his head hit the ground. Root Fairy and Branch Fairy were now each holding an arm, and Trunk Fairy was holding a leg. Only Leaf Fairy was holding a leg which was still attached to the rest of Yujizu's body. Did you get that? Did you get what just happened? Zuo Langchan knew he had no way of forcing the Peach Valley 6 fairies to release Yujizu quickly. So, taking the bull by its horn, he chopped both of Yujizu's arms and one of his legs, so the 4 fairies couldn't tear him apart. This situation was very similar to when your hand was bitten by a poisonous snake and you cut off your arm to save yourself. After Zuo Langchan cut off 3 of Yujizu's limbs, he anticipated the Peach Valley 6 fairies would cease to give any more trouble to this crippled man, so he retreated with a cold laughter. Bells? No bells. He didn't die. So he wasn't torn apart. He just had 3 of his limbs cut off. Yeah. You could say he was saved. He was saved by Zuo Langchan. That guy doesn't deserve a bell anyways. Branch Fairy said, Zhuo Langchan, you have gold and pretty ladies to you. Wait, you gave gold and pretty ladies to Yu Jizi, so he helped you to become the headmaster. How come you cut off his arms and legs? Are you trying to silence him? Root Fairy said, He's afraid we would tear Yu Jizi into 4 pieces. That's why he came out to help, but he got the wrong idea. Fruit Fairy said, He thought he was being clever. What a pity. How funny. We grabbed Yu Jizi just to play around with him. Today is the opening day of the 5 Mountains School. Who would dare to kill people here? Flower Fairy said, Yu Jizi really wanted to kill me, but we're friends from the same school, so why would we kill him? We only wanted to throw him up and down, scare him a bit, but Zhuo Langchan was crude, and his brain is muddled. Leaf Fairy, with his whole body drenched with Yu Jizi's blood, dragged the leg, which was still connected to the body, and dropped Yu Jizi in front of Zhuo Langchan, while continuously shaking his head. He said, Zhuo Langchan, you're too violent. How could you harm Yu Jizi like this? He doesn't have his 2 arms and 1 leg anymore. What should we call him from now on? Three limbs is a death sentence for a normal man. This isn't a normal man. Okay. This is a high-level warrior. He can live with 1 leg. How do you fight with 1 leg? I guess with your mouth. Like you bite him. You can bite people. Zhuo Langchan sucked a breath in anger and thought, If I were just a bit slower, the 4 of you would have torn Yu Jizi into 4 pieces. How can he still live? How dare you speak such words now? But I have no evidence to make this clear to anyone here. Root Fairy said, Zhuo Langchan can kill Yu Jizi with a stab of his sword and give him a clean death, but instead he cut off his 2 arms and 1 leg to make him not alive, not dead. So merciless, so heartless. Trunk Fairy said, Everyone is from the 5 Mountains School. If we have any problem, let's talk about it. Why do you need to be so violent? You have no loyalty at all. Tower Holding Palm Ding Mian said loudly, You 6 weirdos! Whether we move or not, you are going to tear him into 4 pieces. Headmaster Zhuo went in to save Priest Yu Jizi precisely because he's from the same school. What you said was absurd. Branch Fairy said, We were clearly just playing around with Yu Jizi, but Zhuo Langchan thought it was real. It's hard to distinguish between real and fake. Zhuo Langchan was just being unwise. Leaf Fairy said, A gentleman takes responsibility for what he does. You have already harmed Yu Jizi, but you're trying to deny it now. There's no valor in doing what you're doing. There are so many heroes on this mountaintop who saw you chop off Yu Jizi's 2 arms and leg. Do you think you can still deny it now? They're being very logical. Flower Fairy said, Heartless, unrighteous, unwise, cowardly. How can this kind of person become the headmaster of the 5 Mountains School? Zhuo Langchan, you must be dreaming. When he finished speaking, the 6 brothers shook their heads together. Actually, the Taishan School's headmaster would have been torn into 4 pieces if Zhuo Langchan hadn't used his wonderful sword art to cut off Yu Jizi's 2 arms and 1 leg. The first-class masters, besides the worshipping place, naturally could see this, and they were praising Zhuo Langchan's wonderful sword art in their hearts. But the 6 fairies declined this vehemently, so it was hard for other people to dispute them. The people who knew that Zhuo Langchan had suffered an injustice found this really funny, while the ones who didn't see the real reason felt that Zhuo Langchan behaved very crudely and violently. Their faces showed their resentment. Oh, what's up, Losh? Welcome to the stream. Welcome back. Call him Stumpy? Or Nubs? Oh, you're so mean. The guy just lost 3 limbs. Don't be mean. Definition of pugilist? I think a pugilist is like a person in the martial arts world, right? It's like It's like a martial arts guy. I think it's like a person who's in the martial arts world. I'm pretty sure that's what it means. A boxer. Well, this is the wrong. Pugilist in wuxia. Yeah. A martial artist who follows the code of xia is often yeah. So a pugilist is just someone who's someone like a fighter in the martial arts world. I think I said that right. I think I defined that correctly. I'm giving myself credit for that. Yeah, it's a common word used in the wuxia like translations. Wait, where am I? Ling Huchang had already known the Peach Valley Six Fairies for a long time, so he had a very good understanding of their characters. He thought, the Peach Valley Six Fairies attacked Zhu Langchan with every word they said today. How come their brains are so clear? Most likely there's someone directing them from the side. He slowly walked closer to the six fairies to see which master was helping them, but he saw there was no one else standing besides the six fairies. The five brothers were busy trying to stem the bleeding on Flower Fairy's shoulder. Ling Huchang turned his head around and gazed to the west. Suddenly, he heard a very faint sound in his ear. Brother Chang, are you looking for me? Ling Huchang was surprised and happy. Even though the voice was faint, he heard it clearly, and it was Ying Ying's voice. He turned his head slightly to look at where that voice was coming from, but what he saw was an extremely fat and bearded big man leaning on a big rock, lazily stretching his hand to scratch his head. On this Songshan mountaintop, there was at least around 1 to 200 bearded big men, so no one would pay any attention to them. Ling Huchang squinted his eyes, and suddenly he saw a cunning and charming smile in that person's eyes. He was exalted and walked towards her. Ying Ying transmitted her voice to him. Don't come here. You'll ruin the secret. This voice was very faint, like it was coming from somewhere far. Okay. Do you get what happened? So it was Ying Ying directing them to talk the entire time. So that's why they were being so logical and smart. Yeah. So normally the six fairies are not are super incoherent, but looks like they were directed by Ying Ying the entire time. Ling Huchang promptly halted his step and thought, I don't know what kind of voice transmitting martial art you have, but it must be one of your father's secrets. He immediately understood. Those words the Peach Valley Six Fairies were said were all taught by you. No wonder these six slow-witted people can say something like heartless, unrighteous, unwise, and cowardly. He felt really happy and wanted to show this. He loudly declared, Peach Valley Seven Fairies' words are reasonable. I know the Peach Valley Six Fairies only have six fairies, but who could have thought they have one more clever and beautiful seventh fairy, the female fairy, Peachtree Calyx Fairy. So calyx is the whorl of sepals of a flower, collectively forming the outer floral envelope or layer of the blah 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 blah. Sure, whatever. When the crowd heard Ling Huchang suddenly saying some inanity unexpectedly, they were all startled. Ying Ying transmitted her voice. This is a very critical time. You're the headmaster of the Hangshan school, so don't say any nonsense. Zhuo Langchan is backed into a corner now, so this is your good opportunity to become the Five Mountain School's headmaster. Ling Huchang was alarmed, and he thought, Ying Ying disguised herself so that she could be here at Songshan and help me become the Five Mountain School's headmaster? She's the daughter of the Sun Moon Sex's chief. and currently a mortal enemy of the Orthodox sects. If she's discovered, it's going to be very dangerous. She's braving danger just to help me gain a name in Wulin. She has such deep feelings towards me. I really don't know how to repay her. He then heard Peachtree Root Fairy say, Great Master Feng Zhang is such a senior master, but you're not willing for him to become the headmaster. Yu Jizi has no arm and no leg. Zhuo Langchan is... he has one leg. Zhuo Langchan is heartless and unrighteous, so naturally neither of them can become the headmaster anymore. Let's choose a young hero who has the world's #1 sword art to become the 5 mountain schools' headmaster. If there's anyone who doesn't accept this, then there's no harm in trying out his sword art. As he said this, he opened his left palm and extended his arm towards Ling Huchong. Trunk Fairy said, This young hero, Ling Hu, is Hangshan School's headmaster. He has a deep relationship with Huashan School's Mr. Yue, and he's also a good friend of Hangshan School's Mr. Mo Da. Within the 5 mountain sword schools, 3 schools have supported him. Branch Fairy said, Taishan School's priests are all insects. So most of them naturally support him, and not many would go against him. Leaf Fairy said, Everyone in the 5 mountain school uses a sword, so whoever has the highest sword art will, of course, without a doubt, become the headmaster. Flower Fairy pressed on the injury on his shoulder and said, Zhuo Langchan, if you don't accept, there's no harm in competing swords with young hero Ling Hu. Whoever wins will become the 5 mountain schools' headmaster. This is called the Leadership Challenge Sword Fight. Among the people who had come to Songshan, besides the people from the 5 mountain sword schools, and people like Great Master Feng Zheng, Priest Chong Shu, and others with an interest in the events, most of the people who came here were looking for some entertainment. Everyone knew that if the merger of the 5 schools were successful, then there would be fighting to decide for the headmaster position. These Jianghu people really didn't care for lengthy debates. They didn't mind when the Peach Valley 6 fairies were entangling Zhuo Langchan with words and saying interesting things, but if everyone were to talk the way Yue Bu Chun did, and talk until the sun goes down, it would definitely bore the hell out of everyone there. So, hearing Peachtree Flower Fairy say, Leadership Challenge Sword Fight, they cheered and applauded loudly. The crowd had seen Priest Tianmen die miserably, and they had also seen Zhuo Langchan chopping off limbs. These 2 events could be said to be scary and too close to reality, but the contest to decide on the headmaster position of the 5 mountain school would involve masters, and they would be able to see a few good fights. This would more than satisfy their cravings. That was why the crowd was applauding and cheering excitedly. Ling Huchang thought, I promised Great Master Feng Zheng and Priest Chong Shu that I will block Zhuo Langchan from becoming the 5 mountain schools' headmaster so that he can't cause a disaster in Wulin. But if Master becomes the headmaster, him being a just and fair person, naturally people will be pleased and willing to accept him. Besides him, who else in the 5 mountain sword schools can do this job? With a loud voice, he said, How could everyone forget a most suitable person for this position? If we don't elect the gentleman's sword Mr. Yue to become our headmaster, whom else can we choose? Mr. Yue's martial art is very high, and his knowledge is outstanding. He's also righteous and compassionate towards people. This is well known. Otherwise, how could he have gained the name Gentleman's Sword? My Hangshan School elects Mr. Yue to be the 5 mountain schools' headmaster. After he said this, the disciples of Huashan applauded and cheered. Why do you have to... He's so loyal. Oh my god. From among the Songshan school, someone said, Even though Mr. Yue is not the wrong choice, he's still below Headmaster Zhuo by a notch. Another person said, Headmaster Zhuo has been the chief of the 5 mountain sword schools for many years already. It's very reasonable that he becomes the 5 mountain schools' headmaster. Why do we need to elect someone else? Another person said, In my opinion, the headmaster of the Five Mountain School must be Headmaster Zuo and none other. Then we'll establish 4 vice positions for Mr. Yue, Mr. Moda, young hero Ling Hu, and Priest Yu. Either Priest Yu Qingzu or Priest Yu Yinzu. That'll be appropriate. Branch Fairy called out, Yu Jizi is not dead yet. He only has 2 shorter arms and a shorter leg. You don't want him anymore? That's good. Leaf Fairy said, sword fight. Whoever has the best martial art should become the headmaster. The thousands of Jianghu people echoed this sentiment by shouting, right, sword fight. Define pugilist? Oh, I did, didn't I? Yeah, pugilist is like a member, like a martial arts fighter in the martial arts world. Ling Huchong thought, in the situation today, Zhu Longchan must be overthrown first. Then Songshan School will lose their leadership. Otherwise, my master would never become the Five Mountain School's headmaster. He immediately drew his sword and called out, Mr. Zuo, all the realms' heroes are here. They all want us to have a sword fight to take leadership. What do you say if we start first? He inwardly pondered, Zhu Longchan's cold palm is very formidable, and my bare hand martial arts is nothing compared to his, but I wouldn't lose to him when it comes to sword art. After I've won against Zhu Longchan, I'll lose to Master, and no one would be able to say anything. If Mr. Moda were to fight, he won't necessarily be able to beat Master. 2 masters from the Taishan school are injured and dead, so they wouldn't have anyone who could compete well enough anymore. If my sword art isn't Zhuo Longchan's match, and I lose to him, I would have still exhausted a lot of his internal energy. My master can fight him afterwards and have a very good chance of winning. He hacked twice with his long sword and said, Mr. Zuo, everyone in the 5 mountain sword schools uses sword, so we'll decide this with the sword. He said this first to prevent Zhuo Longchan from suggesting they fight barehanded. The crowd called out one by one, Young hero Ling Hu is quick with his word, fight with the sword. The winner becomes the headmaster, the loser gets ready to receive his order. That's a fair deal, that's the best way. Mr. Zuo, get down and accept this challenge. What are you scrupling about, afraid to lose? You already talked for half a day, what else is there to say? Go and fight. In a moment, that Songshan mountaintop was all a clamor with shouts. Everyone was shouting, even the most experienced seniors were shouting. These people were invited by Zhuo Longchan, but this matter of who would become the 5 mountain schools' headmaster had nothing to do with them. They originally didn't want to butt in, but a martial arts competition to take the leadership would be very exciting to watch. So they were all hoping to watch a few good fights. With this added urgings from the guests, it became imperative that if they didn't have a competition, then this headmaster position would not be decided. Ling Huchong was very happy to see this, and he called out, Mr. Zuo, if you're not willing to cross swords with me, how can you be the 5 mountain schools' headmaster in the presence of all these people? The crowd called out one by one, sword fight, sword fight. Not fighting isn't for a hero, but for a dog. Many people from the Songshan school knew Ling Huchong's sword art was wonderful, and Zhuo Longchan could not be guaranteed a win against him. But there was no good reason to say why Zhuo Longchan couldn't compete swords with them. So all they could do was scowl and stay silent. In all the clamor, a clear voice was heard. All the heroes here want a sword fight to decide the 5 mountain schools' headmaster. We can't just brush away their wonderful idea. The person who said this was Yue Bu Chun. The crowd called out, Mr. Yue is right. Sword fight to take the leadership. Sword fight to take the leadership. Yue Bu Chun said, sword fight to take the leadership is one thing, but the real intention of our 5 mountain sword schools merging into one is to lessen the fighting between schools. That's why in this martial arts competition, once the result is decided, you must stay your hand and not take your opponent's life. Otherwise, it would be a great violation against the real intention of our 5 mountain schools' merger. When the crowd heard him talking of leadership, they all quieted down. A big man said, "That's all good, but sabers and swords don't have eyes. So if you die, that's your own bad luck. Who can you blame?" Another person said, "If you're afraid of death or injury, go hide at home and hug your doll. Why would you be here to become the 5 mountain schools' headmaster?" The crowd burst into laughter. Yebushin said, "Even so, to be injury-free is always wonderful. I only have a few shallow ideas, but please consider them." Someone called out, "Quickly, fight! What else is there to say?" Another person said, "Don't blindly disturb him. Hear what Mr. Yue has to say." The person before said, "Who's disturbing? Go home and ask your darling." The other person hurled abuses back. Yue Buchun said, "Anyone here is entitled to participate in the leadership sword fight, but there are some stipulations." His internal energy was abundant. When he talked, he completely drowned the voices of those people hurling abuses at each other. They turned around to listen to him continue. "The leadership martial art competition is to contend for the leadership of the 5 mountain school. For that reason, if you're not a member of the 5 mountains school, you can't come and fight, even if you have heavenly skills. Otherwise, this fight would be called World's #1 fight, and not a way to decide the leadership of the 5 mountains school." The crowd all answered, "Right! Non-members of the 5 mountain schools can't compete." There was also a person who said, "Let's all fight to become the world's #1. That's also good." This person was obviously talking nonsense, so no one replied to him. Yue Buchun said, "Concerning this martial arts competition, about not taking others' life and not injuring people from the same school, Mr. Zuo, please tell us what you think." Zuo Langchan coldly said, "Of course you cannot take another person's life in this fight, but not to injure other people would be very difficult. What's Mr. Yue's esteemed opinion on this?" Ye Buchun said, "I believe the best way would be to ask Great Master Feng Zheng, Priest Chongshu, Beggar Clan Leader Xie, Qingcheng School Priest Yu, and other virtuous senior masters in Wulin to be the judges. Who wins and who loses will be decided by them to avoid people fighting endlessly. We're just deciding the leadership, not life and death." Fang Zhang said, Good. Deciding the leadership and not life and death. These words will stop blood from being spilled. What does Mr. Zuo think?" "Since its great masters is concerned for my humble sect, I'll definitely obey it. We were originally the 5 mountain sword schools, so each school should send out one person to compete in swords to take the leadership. Otherwise, each school will send out hundreds of people, and the competition will drag on for years without any conclusion," Zuo Langchan replied. Stipulations? Like what? I have a few rules. There are some stipulations. I have some rules. No. It seems like it just means like some things to talk about. But I think stipulation mean rules that I want to bring up. Or some concerns. I'm gonna say stipulations means rules. A condition or requirement that is specified or demanded as part of an agreement. Does that mean rules? Rules could work, right? Could work. What do you think, chat? A condition could be a rule. A rule is a condition, right? Yeah, let me know, chat. Dun, 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 dun. Let me know if you agree. But give me a 5-minute break. Bigfoot says he'd say so. I got an agreement. That's not a rule. It's kind of a rule. Condition is a rule. Like, I have some stipulations. I have some rules that I want you to follow. It's not? Tough crowd. Tough crowd. Yeah, it seems synonymous, guys. That's like saying we can only fight on a Tuesday. No, look, his thing is... Yeah, so it's a rule that you can't... If you're not a member of the Five Mountain School, then you can't come and fight. That's a rule. All right, let me know, chat, if I'm making sense. Give me 5 minutes, okay? 5-minute break. Okay, back. Really? You're not gonna give me rules? Okay, fine. I still think I'm right. I still think a stipulation is like a rule. But fine, we'll sing a song. We'll sing a song at the end. Such a tough crowd. All right, where were we? Right. Okay. The crowd felt that it wouldn't be very lively if there were only 5 people fighting, but if each school were to send out its headmaster, then no one else from any of the schools would be able to put up a challenge anyway. They then heard the people from the Songshan school cheering, so no one else objected to this. Branch Fairy suddenly said, Taishan School's headmaster is Yu Jizi. Will this ox-nosed priest with no arms and no leg also come forth and compete? Leaf Fairy replied, He's only missing both arms and a leg. Why can't he go forth and compete? He still has one remaining leg. He can take off and kick people. When the crowd heard this, they couldn't help laughing. Yu Yinzu from Taishan School indignantly said, These 6 weirdos harmed my martial brother Yu Jizi and made him a cripple. Yet they're still here ridiculing him. I want each of their arms and legs cut off. Come, let's fight, one-on-one. After he said this, he immediately drew his sword out and stood there. This Yu Yinzu was tall and thin and had an imposing appearance. As he stood there with a solemn demeanor and with his priest's robe floating in the wind, he looked really grand. The crowd cheered for him. Do I know Wilma? Who the hell is Wilma? Root Fairy said, From the Taishan School, you're the one who's going to compete for the leadership? Leaf Fairy said, Were you selected by your school or did you volunteer yourself? Yu Yinzi replied, how does that concern you? Leaf Fairy said, of course it concerns us. Not only it concerns us, it greatly concerns us. It extremely concerns us. If you were selected by the Taishan school to compete for the leadership, then once you lose, Taishan school's second person cannot compete again. Yu Yinzi said, the second person cannot come out to compete. So what? Suddenly, someone from the Taishan school said, martial brother Yu Yinzi isn't my choice. If he loses, of course, another master from the Taishan school can go out. The person who said this was Yu Qingzi. Flower Fairy said, haha, another master, is that you? Good, maybe it's me. Fruit Fairy called out, everyone look, the Taishan school again has an internal strife. Priest Tianmen has already died, and Priest Yu Zhi is injured. These two people are again fighting to become the Taishan school's headmaster. Nonsense! But Yu Qingzi was smiling coldly and didn't say anything. Flower Fairy said, so, who's going to compete for the Taishan school? Yu Qingzi and Yu Yinzi answered at the same time, me! Root Fairy said, alright, the two of you will fight first and see who's stronger. Talking won't clear it up, but there will be definitely a winner and a loser after you fight. Yu Qingzi came out and waved his hand. Martial brother, step back. Don't be ridiculed by other people. Why would other people ridicule me? Martial brother Yu Zhi was heavily injured. I just want to take revenge for him. Are you taking revenge or competing for the leadership? Do you think we can be the Five Mountain Schools' headmaster based on our measly skills? Isn't that absurd? Everyone from the Taishan school has unanimously supported Chief Zuo to be our Five Mountain Schools' headmaster a long time ago. Why would we two brothers go out and be shamed? Yu Yingzi reasoned. In that case, step back. I'm the eldest in the Taishan school right now. Yu Yingzi coldly laughed and said, you might be the oldest, but looking at what you do every day, do you think anyone in the school still respects you? Oh god, I'm getting their voices all mixed up. Yu Qingzi became angry and said fiercely, what's your meaning? You refuse to acknowledge the order of seniority? What's our school's #1 rule? Don't forget, we're now members of the Five Mountains School. We entered the Five Mountain Schools at the same year, same month, same time. What order of seniority? The rules of the Five Mountain Schools haven't been drawn up yet. So what #1 or #2? You mentioned the Taishan School's rule to keep me under control. It's a pity. There's only Five Mountain School now, Yu Yingzi said. Yu Qingzi didn't know what to say. His left hand pointed at Yu Yinzi's nose, and he angrily said, shoo, shoo. The thousands of men called out, fight! See who's got higher skills. And that's it. Wow. We actually did not get to the fight. I guess that's the next chapter. Well, these traitors are not like, you can't trust a traitor, I guess. They're gonna betray each other too. Wait, what's this Wilma thing? I don't get it. Is it a joke? I'm guessing it's a joke. Oh, it's a knock-knock joke. Knock-knock, who's there, Wilma? Wilma who? Wilma, lunch be ready soon. Ha ha ha. That was pretty short, huh? That was pretty short. Alright, did you guys like that episode? So it looks like the next chapter, there will be a fight. And it's going to be a fight between like the 5 strongest people in the sword school. So should be good. Chocolate Salty Balls. I don't know that song. What the hell is that? I don't know if I want to know that song. All right. Ooh. Gonna pour myself some wine. I'm thinking some red hot chili peppers. What is that song from them? Other Side. I like that song. Maybe I should sing that. Should I sing that? All right. Cheers. If there are no suggestions, I'm gonna sing some Red Hot Chili Peppers.